main event, which is going to be our review of Netflix's Sea Beast.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty cool movie and very kaiju. Even though it's a pirate movie, there's sea shanties. It's very inspired, very clearly inspired by kaiju, the genre of kaiju movies, and also the symbolism that's often incorporated into a lot of the older, especially a lot of the older kaiju movies,
and even
where they're making political statements based off of kind of the story.
And even some of the music, the music in the first battle that they had with the Brickleback is what that monster was called.
Yeah, it was an awesome green.
The score and everything. Oh my god, they had a great crew work on this movie. The director was Chris Williams. He's known for like a lot of Disney movies. He's done Frozen, Big Hero 6, Bolt, a lot of Disney stuff. You didn't expect a monster movie.
Yeah.
But he was actually just recently interviewed in LA Weekly, I believe, and he said his inspiration for this movie was King Kong, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and all of the older stop-motion Ray Harryhausen movies like Sinbad and Clash of the Titans. So there is some kaiju roots in this movie, 100% for sure. I mean,
there's a shot in this movie that is straight lifted from the original Godzilla movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you see it happening, you're like, oh, well, that's that.
Yep, yeah, there's that shot, the Ibra Heart of the Deep with the claw coming out in the boat. Tons of awesome imagery in this movie. I really enjoyed it. I mean, so the movie follows the two main characters, Jacob Holland, who's played by Carl Urban. I mean, everyone loves that guy. Yeah. He's in Lord of the Rings. He's in The Boys now. He was Judge Dredd in Dredd.
I didn't realize he was Dredd.
Yeah, that was an awesome movie.
Yeah.
What else? He's been in a lot. He was in Thor.
I mean, Thor. But yeah, probably most known for, at least today, most known for The Boys, because that's like everywhere. I don't even watch The Boys, and I know he's in The Boys.
Yeah. And it's so Jacob Holland and Zaris Angel Hator
Hater. I just hate her.
As Maisie, his little girl.
Yeah.
So Jacob Holland, Carl Urban's character, is what's he called?
They're called hunters.
They're called hunters. I was going to call him a kaiju hunter, but
yeah, basically that's what they are.
That's basically what he is.
They're kaiju hunters.
On the sea ship, they hunted the sea beast. He's been doing it all his life because he was on a ship that was destroyed by a sea beast. And Maisie's an orphan. Her parents used to be hunters as well. They were killed on a ship, and she's just a huge hunter fan.
Girl. She has this. Right now she lives in at the beginning of the movie. She's living in an orphanage that is being funded by the king and queen of their kingdom, and so obviously it's filled with a bunch of books put out by the government. And the one that she's most enthralled with is the Tales of Captain Crow, who's a real person that still exists in the mythos of this movie. So she wants to go onto his crew because she wants to be a kaiju, a monster, a sea beast hunter. So she escapes from the orphanage, and kind of meets up with the crew of the Inevitable, who has just had this crazy fight with that Brickleback, and the ship has kind of just been almost like destroyed. Like they really went all out. Most of the people on the ship almost died, including the captain, and they're just super run down. They want to go back to town, spend their money from their bounties, and get back to shore because they're after this red bluster. Now, the captain, who is Captain Crow, this is kind of like his life's mission. He starts off the movie saying, "It's been 30 years. I've been chasing this beast down, and it keeps getting away." these hunters do operate by a code, and he kind of almost breaks it at the beginning of the movie, trying to want to go after the Red Bluster versus helping out other hunters.
Yeah, so
yeah.
he so while they're hot on the tail of the Red Blusters for the opening of the movie, but right as they're about to go into action against it, they see off in the horizon another hunter crew fighting the Brickleback, which you mentioned earlier. It's just basically like the Brickleback was like a giant.
It's like a sea serpent, but with like armor.
Tentacles.
Yeah, tentacles, and it has like armor plating, almost like a way a crab would, where it's like an extrovert.
Yeah.
Really interesting design, almost like an alligator with like a horn in the front, but then it turns into a serpent, but it has tentacles. Really weird, but kind of cool design.
Yeah, the designs for this are really cool. I mean, the Red Bluster
is the most simplest one,
which we see above us. It's a simple design. It's cool. I wish it had a little, like, even like the stomach, maybe give it like it's just all red.
And there's shading involved. I've seen some of the more early concept stuff, just doing some research before this, and it looked like it was a more detailed model. I don't know if something happened along the way, or they decided, hey, we're going to go a little bit more towards a kid-friendly thing, so we're going to try to just make it a simple red monster.
Yeah.
But I don't want to super. I mean, yeah, I thought the design of the Red Bluster could have been a little bit better, but if you look at,
it's simple and effective.
It's simple and effective, and you can tell just by watching this movie that the people who animated it really knew what they were doing. Because like the water, I think like the water animation
looks fantastic in this movie.
Almost looks real.
Yes, it does. It does.
And then like a lot of like, especially with like Maisie's hair, it's like very realistic. Like the way it like bounces and everything. Like you can tell that they like a lot of the monster designs for the friendly ones are very simple.
Yes, like Blue's
blue. Little
squishy guy.
There's like a yellow walrus.
Yeah, with all these like little walrus like pig baby things.
Yeah. But like those are very simple designs, but then like everything else, like you could tell like those are intentionally simple. Those weren't like, we don't really know how to animate stuff, so we're gonna just do like red.
And they made the bad ones were like the overly complicated ones. Like the crab fight. That was really cool.
Yeah. So
I mean, all the fights from the Brickleback to the crab fight. We get the Red Bluster versus the blue sea crab, and then we also have the Red Bluster fight. The Queen and King make this like massive ship.
Yeah,
it's like it's supposed to be like the Kaiju killer.
It's basically like a ship, but it's just covered. It's like each side is just cannons.
Yeah. So part of the premise of this movie is they go back with their bragging about the Brickleback, and the King and Queen are like, we heard you could have got the Red Bluster, but you followed your dumb code and you went for the Brickleback instead and helped those guys. They're like, we don't pay you to follow codes. So then the little admiral that's played by Dan Stevens, who's going to be in Godzilla vs. Kong 2 or the sequel, he's bragging about their new ship, and this ship's crazy, and Dan Stevens is like, oh, I'm going to kill the Red Bluster first. So it turns into a competition between the Inevitable and Dan Stevens' crew, which is basically the King and Queen's army. Whoever can get the Red Bluster first will continue to be the hunter for the King and Queen. Because the King and Queen are like, the day of hunters is over now. This is the last job you're getting paid for. We have this badass ship now, and this is going to kill everything.
Yeah.
But when we see the battle between that ship and the Red Bluster, it's clearly not the case.
Yeah, no. It is the biggest stomping ever.
Oh boy.
But
it didn't stand a chance.
Yeah. I mean, so to go on the plot, Maisie, so they go back out. Maisie's a stowaway. She tries to befriend Jacob to let her be a crew member, but he just is not having it. He's like, ship's no place for a kid. So anyway, she stows away, ends up on the ship, just like any movie. It's always a stowaway.
Every ship movie. Yeah.
Every ship movie, there's always someone who wants to be on the crew that gets no and then stows away.
Yeah.
They engage the Red Bluster, and it's just the most one-sided fight.
Yeah.
The Red Bluster is just very large. It's like the biggest kaiju,
Yeah.
I think, in this movie that we see, and it just is so strong. It just makes a whirlpool, and it just has its mouth at the bottom of the whirlpool, just trying to funnel this ship into it, because it's just gonna just destroy the entire ship. Captain Crow does not want to give up, no matter what, and Maisie's the only crew member that has any sense, because she's just running off of survival instinct at this point. Is just, oh, this captain's gonna kill us. He's gonna take us all down with the ship. So she cuts the ship loose, gets knocked out with Jacob, and basically saves the entire crew. But because the captain is just so fixated, he's like basically ready to kill her. Like, he's pointing a gun at her and is like ready to go. Jacob's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "It's just a kid."
Yeah.
And then they just get swallowed by the Red Bluster, ship and all, because they're on a little dinghy, Jacob and Maisie. So they get swallowed, and they get taken away, and it kind of follows kind of their journey with Red Bluster the rest of the way. They first off, they kind of climb through, and they get to like its nose, where they kind of use it as like a little viewport. And
yeah. Because at first I was like, how are they looking into the water out? It's got almost like a film that covers its nose when it's underwater. So they were able to breathe inside the Red Bluster the whole time and look out its nostrils like it was a window. So it's just pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty cool concept for a way for somebody to be inside of, like, to travel inside of a monster.
Yeah.
And be perfectly safe. Like, it's a pretty smart idea.
Yeah, I mean, and then they get back to the Red Bluster's island, which is just loaded with monsters, not just sea beasts. You got all beasts, and he opens his nostrils, and Jacob's like still in like, I'm gonna kill this thing mode. He's got just him and a spear.
Yeah, he's gonna do it.
The spear gets stuck in the nostril, and the Red Bluster sneezes him out, and he ends up sneezing both of them out, and they're just like sitting on the beach. The Red Bluster's like, "Hey, later, guys," and they end up just taking shelter in a giant snail shell. And I thought this shell was gonna have like a monster in it.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I was like, it's gonna come out at some point. We're gonna see a hairy claw come out or something, but it never happened.
It was like a hermit crab or something, but yeah, and then this eventually leads into the awesome Red Bluster versus the giant sea crab fight, because the two of Jacob's like, all right, we're going. So they get on their little dinghy and they start rowing out, and then they're like, oh, this thing is sinking. It's got a giant hole in it. And then they're like, all right, let's go back to land. And then as they're going back, we get that Ibra scene, almost Ibra Heart of the Deep scene, where we just see a giant claw rise out of the water behind them. And the Red Bluster is not having any of it. He's like, I don't want to get hurt in this little girl. So there's an epic fight between the Red Bluster and the sea crab, and once again, we get an awesome fight.
It's kind of like the last kaiju fight, monster fight of the movie.
Yes.
From there on, it's all just like it versus other boats and things like that. But it was a really good fight. I think it was about I felt like it was about like 10 minutes long.
What? No. It was a long fight, but it was definitely not 10 minutes long.
Maybe 5.
Yeah. It was a cool fight. Absolutely.
Decent amount of time. But Maisie kind of figures out how to talk to Baloo and gets it to, bring them to an island where they can get a ship and get refuge and everything. She brings Baloo with his, which is kind of like some kaiju she found on the island. You saying kaiju, it's a sea beast, but it's small. It's like the size of a dog. So it's like, it's like their companion. So they're riding the back of Red, and it's kind of like that whole like, oh, monsters aren't that bad thing. We have it wrong.
Yeah.
That it's actually a good monster. And
It's
along the way, they slowly remove all the spears from its back, and it's kind of like one of those things where it's just like a generic kids plot as far as like, just don't judge a book by its cover.
yeah. It's like almost like a very How to Train Your Dragon moment. Like
Yeah,
that's where this movie has drawn a lot of comparison to How to Train Your Dragon. Because everyone, at the beginning of How to Train Your Dragon, everybody hates the dragons. They're hunting the dragons, and he befriends a dragon, and his dad's like the biggest dragon hunter in the world. So it's basically very similar plot there, which some people have critiqued it for, but
yeah, but I
it's
just think
not 100%.
no, not even 100%. And then when
So-
you watch the end of the movie, it is 100% a different. Where they go with it, and the symbolism is completely different compared to like
Yeah.
How You Train Your Dragon.
Yeah,
At least in my opinion.
yeah. I mean, we get like an epic, I'm going to call it a big city scene where Red is in the city and smashes a couple of buildings accidentally, though. Captain Crow, they reunite with Captain Crow eventually.
Yeah. So,
but in the
before
meantime,
I don't want to
go.
I don't want to go to the end of the movie yet.
Here you go, take it over.
So, he brings him to the island, and he kind of drops him off. Jacob saying, "Oh no, no, not gonna be hunting. No more hunting. I'm done." We get a pretty comical scene where he's trying to break a spear, but he can't do it. And they're walking over the. It's like a hill to this island. So this island's kind of
they're
like
trying to climb like the peak of the island to kind of see where they are. They kind of want to see if they could find a ship nearby to flag down, and they end up finding the king and queen's admiral is docked at this island for some reason.
yeah.
And
that's where we get the Godzilla shot with the monster peeking his head over the island.
and then roaring at them.
Yeah, it was straight lifted from the original.
Oh, 100%.
I was like, oh, thank God they did. I was so happy that they did that. And
I understood that reference.
yeah, and the fight between it and this boat, or if we even call it a fight, it just swims straight through the middle of the boat and just
because it's got this
halves
huge
it.
horn on its head, so it just obliterates the boat with its horn. And the admiral is like shook. He's like, "All right, clearly I was way over my head and too cocky." But then the crew of the Inevitable is nearby, and they see this whole battle go down. And once again, Captain Crow is just like dead set on getting this red bluster. So while they were all on the island, Jacob and Maisie, he had gone to some like
Witch
doctor
thing.
lady and got this harpoon gun with some poison in it. That was a little weird, that scene, in my opinion, because he's like, "Oh, what's it going to cost you?" And she goes, "Everything." So like, what did he end up owing her? Like,
Because that was one thing, and you can. I guess at the end of the movie, he did lose the respect of his crew and everybody else. But then, like, they kind of somewhat, like, forgave him, or, like, he realized he was wrong.
yeah,
It was really weird. They didn't, like, touch on, like, what his consequences were at the end of the movie.
like, yeah, and
He kind of just lost his crew.
Yeah, and like the whole time the crew is like, it's against the hunter's code to go work with this lady, and he goes there anyway because he's like that angry and
Yeah.
driven to try to kill this red bluster. So he gets the poison, and jumps in after the red bluster destroys the queen and king's ship, and he poisons it, and he doesn't kill it. He poisons it because he wants the bragging rights that he actually did it. And he wants to execute it in front of the king and queen in their home city.
Yeah. So they bring Jacob and Maisie back on the boat. Maisie's a bit injured from all the fire of the cannon fire from the king and queen's boat. So she gets a blood transfusion from Jacob. Jacob's talking with Crow, and Crow's just like, "You're a hunter. You know who you are. I don't understand why you've changed so much." Maisie tries to kill Crow with like a knife.
Yeah, she wakes up mid blood transfusions like, I'm gonna shank this guy.
Yeah, I like checked the rating on this movie. It's a PG movie. But I was like, there's blood, there's like so much stuff, and I was like, oh my god, I'm like, she's trying to kill him with a knife, and but yeah, still a PG movie. But she's kind of locked away, and Jacob's kind of conflicted, and he's following Crow. She realizes while locked away, though, that all the books that everybody's reading are all issued by the king and queen.
They all have the royal symbol on it.
So this is kind of where the movie really starts getting... At the beginning of the movie, it was kind of clearly referencing, like, race relations and, like, don't judge a book by its cover. Just because you're told that somebody's bad, a certain type of thing is bad, doesn't mean that they all are. But once they hit this stride and they really start entering in the final act of the movie, it's all very much changes the tone of like the sub undertones of the movie, and it turns into a whole like the government is trying to separate people in the ways of we pit them against each other and we profit.
Yeah,
like that's
100%.
What the plot of the movie turns to is, you know, that whole like the empire has grown exponentially since the beginning of sea beast hunting.
Yeah, throughout the whole movie, they reference this time called the Dark Days.
Yeah,
and they're saying, oh, the sea beasts used to come ashore and take children and raid farms. And it's sort of this moment that you talked about when she discovers that it's all the royal is sort of foreshadowed a little early on in the book when she's reading all these quotes about the crew, and she's seeing Jacob killed 4 monsters in 2 days, and he's like, oh, it's actually 5. And then there's a point when he's on when he first gets on that island where Red drops him off, he's reading the book and he's like, this isn't right. Like, he's like, this isn't even true. Like, he's reading through the book and he's like, things are not clicking. And the book's about him and his ship with Captain Crow.
Yeah.
And that's sort of like the little foreshadowing there that this was coming, where it was going to.
Yeah, like at the beginning of the movie, you're led to believe that this book that Maisie's bringing around is like a children's book with just like tall tales in it and stuff like that. So when he's saying like, oh yeah, you know, it's really 5 monsters, it sounds like he's just trying to brag. But as you're going along and you see it has the royal seal and everything, you're like, oh no, this is a history book that has false history in it.
Yeah.
So we cut. So we're in the city. Brings the red bluster there. Crow is about to kill it, but Jacob walks out. And I think initially Crow probably thought that, oh, he's coming to help me, but then quickly realizes, like, no, he's confronting me. So Crow just, like, goes crazy.
Yeah, they have not really a sword fight. Like, he just, like, kind of beats the crap out of him, kicks him in the water type of fight.
Yeah, and then the rest of the crew, who's already been told that Jacob's taking over after this, is like, well, what is going on right now? They've already been kind of second questioning the captain because he's gone back on his code, and you know they're very strong into their code and following it, and he's kind of disgraced the entire crew because he's used this like dark magic weapon on a monster, and it's not going to be an honorable kill because he's like poisoned it and is now going to bring it someplace else to execute it. So everyone's like, what are you doing? We get this giant fight, and during it, the crew kind of trying to get back from Crow, Red kind of starts to lose it because Maisie gets hurt again, or sees Maisie get knocked down. So it starts going on a rampage. They're about to start firing all these cannons. The king and queen are there, and it's kind of like really cool, like how like they're in this giant, like almost like theater.
Yeah,
like the way this kingdom's laid out. Like the water part they're in is almost laid out like a theater.
Yeah, it's almost like they would do like a water show there.
Yeah, and like the castle would have like its own like viewing part
Yeah.
of it. Like that's kind of like the way this city's like laid out. Um,
So Red's about to
Yeah.
just eat the captain, is pissed off, and then who's it?
Maisie's the one that steps up.
Yeah, Maisie's the one that steps up and is like, "No, don't do it. You're never gonna end this." And she starts telling the whole city how the king and queen and their royal family is the one behind the war. That the sea beasts were never actually bad. That their ancestors started this whole story that the sea beasts were evil, just so that there was a constant war and fight with the monsters, hunters going out there, and the king and queen are not happy about it. They're ordering their entire army just to open fire on the monster, and they're like, "What right do you have to say this is false?" And she's like, "Well, my parents were hunters, and they died on I forgot the name of her
I
parents'
think it
ship."
was like the Monarch.
Yes, the Monarch. Yep.
Yeah,
Is that a Monsterverse reference?
maybe.
But she's ordering her general to open fire, and then the whole city's like, "Let him go!" Like they're like, "You're gonna execute a child in front of an entire city," because she wants them to just open cannon on Maisie.
Yeah, yeah. And the head commander, because the admiral's no longer there, the head commander there doesn't give the order, goes against. Actually, no, there was a general. They were a general. Goes against the orders of the king and queen and says like, well, she's like, my sister was on the Monarch, and I'd like to know if her death was in vain, or are they dying this glorious death that you've sold everybody?
Yeah.
So the king and queen kind of run off. They basically the kingdom's overthrown, and it's basically happily ever after from there. Jacob actually breaks the spear. No more hunting. And then then you can tell like his like legs like shaking, and then she's like, "Did that really hurt?" And he goes, "You have no idea how badly that hurt." And they live happily ever after. That's the end of the movie. I was really surprised with this movie.
Oh yeah, me too. It was a really fun movie. The way it ends, I don't think we can or should see a sequel.
No.
I think it's got to be a prequel, because if they do the sequels, then it's gonna draw the How to Train Your Dragon comparison even more.
Yes.
Because what's gonna happen?
She has blue and
what
all
could the sequel possibly be? That another group from another nation comes and they want to hunt the sea beasts, and they're encroaching on their peace with the sea beast, or all of a sudden there's a group of evil sea beasts. I don't think a sequel could work for this.
I think we
need a prequel where they're just mindlessly hunting them.
Yeah,
I don't want to say mindlessly, but
I can see a
there's
Captain
gotta be a
Crow
story to it.
I would like to see as to why Captain Crow is so obsessed with the Red Bluster and what it has done to him.
In the movie, he says, "Oh, his father and his father's father were hunters," but I mean, clearly, Crow's he's lost an eye, he's lost a leg.
And he's been saying 30 years he's been going after this single sea beast.
The opening scene of the movie, you see Jacob as a kid, probably just survived an attack from a monster. Who knows if that was the Red Bluster? Maybe. Was that the Monarch? That's the other thing that I would know. It wouldn't be the Monarch because his parents.
So the one thing about that didn't make any sense. When he was on like the lifeboat when he was a kid, or was it like a door or a plank of wood or something?
Yeah.
It almost looked like a giant stingray with like white and black and white stripes on it.
Oh yes,
that went underneath it. But I thought we were going to see that in the movie, and we never did.
Yeah, you know what? We never saw a follow up for that monster.
I could see that maybe, but like, I feel like it's going to if they do a sequel for this movie, it's going to defeat the messaging.
Mm-hmm. That's how I feel about it too. I don't think you can do a sequel. You can only do a prequel.
Yeah. Yeah, if
With,
we can get a
with,
Captain Crow movie, that would kind of be cool because he has that awesome sea shanty. So
yeah,
maybe we can get the crew singing that or something.
and I would like to see maybe a series even. I don't know.
I
I
could
don't
see
know.
it, but like I honestly don't know where you would go from here.
Yeah,
Because
it would need to be a prequel, in my opinion. It
I,
was a great movie, though.
it was a great movie.
As a standalone, it's great.
I feel that the messaging was so relevant for this time and everything, and I just thought that um, it came out at a good time. I feel like this
Yeah,
movie, um, as a kids movie though, I don't know if I was a kid if I would be super into this movie.
I think so. It's got the monsters. I
It
think
does. It's got blue.
if you go with the basic plot, I think it works.
Yeah.
One of the main characters is a kid. I think it works as a kid's movie. I mean, clearly it's supposed to be a kid's movie.
Yeah. Clearly, it's supposed to be a kids movie.
But it was a good time.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. We forgot to mention it on our last show, actually, but that it was out before it came out. But yeah, we ended up doing it. We covered it, and we loved it.
Yeah.
A lot more than like I said, I didn't expect it to be this good. Like when I saw the Ebert reference in the trailer, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But I didn't expect it to be nearly as good as it was. But it was really good. If it came out on physical, I would totally pick up a copy
Oh,
of it.
definitely.
Yeah. I'm hoping it does. I know every now and then
Yeah, every
they
once in a
release
while.
a Netflix movie on DVD or Blu-ray, so there's a chance. I think actually one of those Lin-Manuel Miranda movies that was on Netflix got a physical release this week, so I'm hoping that happens with this.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see that. But yeah, I believe that's it as far as this episode goes. So if you guys want to go again, check out our Twitter.